Most people measure progress looking forward. They look at what they have not done yet, what they have not built yet, and how far they still think they need to go. And then they wonder why they feel discouraged. I learned something really powerful from Dan Sullivan in his book, Gap and the Gain, and it's called Measure Progress Backwards. And when I figured this out, it totally changed the way that I motivated myself and the way that I motivate other people. The reason why people feel like they're behind even when they're winning is because of this. Your brain naturally measures your current position to your future goal, which creates this constant feeling of lack. You're always looking at the mountain peak instead of how far you've come as you've been climbing. So even if you're improving, even when you're growing, and even when you're doing better than last year, you feel like you are behind. And that is a huge motivation killer for business owners and people that are trying to make change in their lives. I have an accountability partner that I used to meet with regularly, and we kind of got a little bit busy and off track, and we stopped meeting for probably about 6 months. And I got this text message from her recently and it said, "Hey, do you have time today?" And immediately my brain thought, oh no, I don't have anything to report that I've been successful in. Every time that we meet, we talk about what our goals are and the things that we have accomplished since we met the last time. And it's such a great motivator because we get to look back and say, these are the things that I've done. This is the stuff that I'm hoping to do in the future. And that is helpful to keep me working towards my goal. The problem was that I felt like I hadn't done anything in 6 months. I responded to her text and said, absolutely, let's meet. So then we got on the phone and we started talking. And as I was reporting some of the things that I've done in the last year, I realized, actually, I've done a whole lot more than I realized. And the cool thing about that meeting was that it made me realize that even though my goal is out here, the amount of space that I have gained in working towards my goal was a lot more than I had realized. And the problem with measuring forward and looking at your goal, which is important to have goals and to set goals, is that usually the gap continues to grow. And the reason for that is because once we get closer to our goal, we naturally shift to change where that goal is at, and which we should, because if you only reach your goal and then quit, well, then life gets boring and you don't have anything to look forward to. So moving the goal is important. For instance, a couple years ago, I went to see a doctor because I couldn't lose weight. And we sat down and she asked me what my goal was. And I told her I'd like to weigh 160 pounds. And she said, I think that goal is not good enough. And I thought, well, I think it's good enough and that's where I want to go. So that's what I'm going to do. I felt like that was a solid number. But once I got to 160 pounds, I realized actually that is too much weight and I should lose more than that. And so I set a goal even lower and then I reached that goal and then I set a goal even lower than that. And the thing is that that goal needed to keep moving. I needed it to be a short goal so that I could achieve the goal, so that I could feel like I was accomplishing something, but I didn't need for my goal to stay there. I needed it to continue to move. Now, because of that, also, today, when I weigh myself, I'm like, darn, I haven't reached my goal. But actually, I've met 2 goals. I'm ahead of the game if I measure backwards. But when I'm measuring forwards, I'm feeling like I'm left behind. And the cool thing about this measuring backwards, I'll show you this. This is what happens. So we have this line, this is where we start, right? This is us starting out. This is me, happy Kimberly, on her way to meet her goals, right? And she's gonna work her way on this journey towards her goal, right? The problem with most of think of ourselves as right here in this moment in time, where we are at, instead of how far we have come. So Kimberly started here, and now Kimberly is over here on her way to reach her goals. And let's say on the goal spectrum, I am here. And as you can see, I have achieved so much. I've come so far to reaching where I want to be in my goal. And then as I keep going, maybe I'm here, but there's this gap here. That gap is where most people are measuring if they are successful. They're looking at this empty space between them and where they want to be on their goals, and they're thinking, I am behind. But if you go instead and you look at I'm right here and you measure all the way back to where you started, then you can see that the reality is you have achieved so much, and we should be measuring that. It's January right now when I'm recording this. Most people are visioning, they're setting their life goals, they're setting their plans for the year, what they see that they're going to accomplish this year. And I would argue, I heard this once, I think it was Ed Milet that said it, that we should be not just creating a vision board of who we want to be and where we want to go, but also creating an accomplishment board of how far we have come, the things that we have achieved, the things that we have gained in this life, and where we are succeeding, because we should be celebrating our successes. That creates momentum. It continues us for moving in the direction that we want to go. It helps us be motivated. It helps us to stay on track, and helps us to feel like we are actually doing something. A couple years ago, I was working a lot and thinking about my life and feeling sorry for myself and woo me and all of the things. And I decided to make an intention. I said, you know what? This year I'm going to write down all the fun things that I do. I'm going to plan out my trips. I'm going to get one of those big boards that measures a year at a glance so I can see the whole year all at once. And I'm going to write it all out. So I went and got this cardboard sign, and I'll show you a picture of that. This cardboard from Office Max or Office Depot, and I spent a couple of hours drawing out a year at a glance calendar, and then I filled it all in with all my fun stuff that I was going to do that year. And as the year went by and I planned out new trips, planned out new things, I added them to the calendar. And at the end of the year, I looked at the calendar and I was like, wow, I have done so much. My life is really full. Before that, I felt like I was on this merry-go-round that was zoom. It was slow down for Saturday and zoom and spin again and slow down for Saturday and zoom and zoom. And I just felt like I was living for Saturdays over and over and over again. And if you've ever heard this analogy before, they say that most people live the same year in decades. And I didn't want to be that person. I didn't want to wake up one day and be like, what did I do with my life? Where did it all go? I wanted to stop and pay attention and enjoy and appreciate. And I wanted to feel like I wasn't falling behind. And so I created a calendar. And then the next year I decided to just buy one. There's a company that makes them. I'm sure there's many companies. And I'll show you a picture of the calendar that I use now. And it's super cool because it has the weekends shaded out and comes with these little stickers and everything. So you can draw out all the things that you want to do in your lifetime in the next year. And you have something to look forward to. And then when you get to the end of the year, my calendar is now, I get to look back and go, wow, look at all the life that I lived. And I just love that. I love the idea of remembering the positives. When my kids were growing up, you don't really get to decide what your kids have as core memories, right? Their core memories are going to be things that randomly show up. They'll be like, remember when this happened or remember when that happened? It's always the things that I'm embarrassed that it was bad behavior on my part or something along those lines that I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that or whatever. But whenever we'd go on a trip, I had a little trick. We would be getting ready to get on the plane to come home. And I would say, what was your favorite thing about this trip? Or what's one thing that you want to remember about this week? And on their birthdays, I would say, what's something that you want to remember that happened in the last year? Something that was a highlight, something that you want to remember for the rest of your life. And we would relive that moment because something about having that emotion attached to it and that intention of reliving that moment made us all remember this thing that happened, and now it becomes part of our core memories. And that's what we want, right? We want to remember the good times. We want to remember the stuff that is progress. It helps us to continue to keep going on this journey when some days are really hard. So try that. Measure your time backwards. Think about it. Audit your year, audit your time, and decide for you, what do you want to remember? And how far have you already come? You may not be there yet. And honestly, you probably never will be, because you're constantly sending your goal out even further. And we should always be moving our goals because that's how we progress. That's how we continue to grow. And that's a good thing. But don't make it something that ends up causing you to be discouraged. And if you're a leader, this is super important for your team as well, because everyone loves to celebrate small wins, and it creates momentum and it helps to continue to prevent the burnout. And it reminds your staff and your team who you are becoming instead of we're not there yet. So here's your assignment. Build your accomplishment board, map out how far you have come and where your goal is, which is important, but celebrate how far you've already traveled on the journey to reaching your goals.